priesthood. Like we have a priesthood, our priesthood, it was a Levitical priesthood, and the priests, they had certain rights that they would have to do, and certain sacrifices that they would have to make and shed certain blood, and there were certain things that they would have to do, burn up the incense, and sacrifice, there was rituals, right? But the sacrifice, and I'm talking about the Levitical priesthood. Their priesthood is on the left hand side. They did that, but the Levitical priesthood, they had ordinances and things that they had to do. So these other nations, they have a priesthood also. Now, when you look in the scriptures, there shall not be a sodomite, a whore, or if somebody knew where that scripture's at, grab that. Where it says, "Thou shalt not have a whore or a sodomite of the children of Israel," those were called cult prostitutes. Now, a cult prostitute was somebody that would actually be venerating a certain particular deity or a fake god, and what they would do is they would venerate it by the act of a sexual manner. And that's how they would. That's why when these devils have certain events on certain days, what they're doing is they have like orgies, whether it be heterosexual orgies or homosexual orgies, because of the fact that that's how they get closer to their gods. So if somebody got that, you could read that, and if somebody get the Apocrypha, get a second Maccabees 6 and start at the top.
This is Deuteronomy 23.
If somebody can pull up the blue letter on their Bible, go ahead.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel,
right,
nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel.
Now you got these clowns, right, that speak about, read that scripture and talk about an actual whore on the corner. Now we already know that really a whore on the corner, a woman that's an Israelite that's a whore, she's an adulteress, and we know what that entails and what that goes into. But now when you read in this scripture here, when it speaks about a whore, "Thou shalt not have no whores of the daughters of Israel," it's not talking about a prostitute that sits on a corner waiting for men having to have sex with men. It's talking about these women that became whores for the temple. They were temple prostitutes. They were in the temples having sex in the temples for a particular deity or a particular god. So you got that, Sakaran?
I got the blue letter.
Blue letter. Yeah. If you could look up the same scripture, read that again, Elder.
Deuteronomy 23 and 17.
Yep.
There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel.
Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when you go back to the Hebrew on both the whore in this one and sodomite on that one, they both go back to the word Quadash or Quadashah. Because we know the word Quadash means holy, but I believe when it's applied to a so-called priest, as far as the sodomite or the whore, it was Quadashah, and then what that is, that was the what they called cult prostitutes that would have sexual intercourse in the temple to venerate a certain god. If you got that, Sakaran, you can bring it out, Elder Sakaran. Okay, so you read that again.
Yep. Deuteronomy 23:17. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel.
Right, so when you read that, you gotta know what the context is of that particular scripture.
Get to the next verse.
Go ahead.
It said, "Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord, thy power for any vow, for even both of these are abomination to the Lord thy power."
And now y'all remember the story in Numbers, the 25th chapter, how that Israel was committing whoredoms with the women of the Midianite women. And then remember Phinehas, he got mad, and he killed that Jake. He ran him through the back and the woman through the belly. Why? Because they were committing those same whoredom acts of having sex with these women to venerate their gods. That's the reason why they were put to death. They weren't put to death because they dealt with the women of the other nations. They were put to death because they were venerating the gods of those nations. Like same thing like Solomon.
Sexual magic.
Sexual magic. And hey, brother, if you got some information now, you can bring it up. Yes.
Goes right with what you're saying. If you read the red Bibles, like we got the old school red Bibles, where it has a lot of the precepts, right?
Con.
In Deuteronomy, the verse he just read, 17. It says the word whore there, the precept says whore sodomitis.
Right, sodomitis.
It wasn't just regular sex. It it was, Sodom,
It was all different types of
unnatural sex.
Unnatural
that
sex.
They did to
Right.
their gods, like you said.
Animals, bestiality,
Yep.
anything profane, orgies.
Matter
Anal sex.
of fact,
Right, yep.
Put it like that.
matter of fact, before you, while that pulls up, read that in Maccabee. You finish with the point? Okay.
Yeah, right. 2 Maccabees 6:1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers.
There you go. That's the Hellenistic the Hellenistic period, or the Hellenizing of the Israelites. That's where you had a group of them that still knew they were Israelites that were speaking those languages, and you still had a group of Israelites that fell away and became Greeks.
Yep.
Or should I say Greeks?
Greeks.
Go ahead.
And not to live after the laws of the Most High.
Right. Go ahead.
Kind of spiritual heathen.
Right. And then this is the point, because now you got to remember that these rights that we're reading about, they go back to ancient empires before the Greeks, before the Romans, before the Persians, before the Medes, before the Assyrians, the Babylonians, before the Egyptians, going back to Sumeria in the beginning of time. Everybody had a priesthood, but their priesthood was on the left-hand side. It was wicked, because remember, before the actual Levitical priesthood was actually etched in stone, you had Melchizedek, that was the actual priest of the Most High. So this shows you that the Most High's priesthood goes all the way back to the beginning of time. So all these other different nations, they had their own priesthood, but their priesthood was not like the priesthood of the Most High. It was different. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem.
Yep, to pollute also the temple of Jerusalem. Go ahead. And this is what Antiochus and them did. Go ahead.
And to call it the temple of Jupiter, Olympus.
Yep. Because they're incorporating their worship of their gods into our temple, because there was time for us to fall. That's why that when you read in Daniel the 9th chapter, that was part of the abomination of desolation. The fulfillment of the abomination of desolation was with the Romans, but they was also part of that abomination that made desolate, because it also, I believe it's in First Maccabees, the 1st chapter, it also calls them the abomination of desolation. You know, the Greeks, because they were all Edomites. Go ahead,
And that in Gorizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers.
Go ahead.
As they did desire that dwelt in this place.
Go ahead.
The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people.
The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous unto the people, because Jake was catching hell back then. Yeah. Go ahead.
For the temple was filled with riot.
The temple was filled with riot. They were partying, dancing. Dionysus, the god of wine, all that, right? Go ahead.
And reveling by the Gentiles.
And reveling by now this Gentile is the other Gentile, not the first Gentile, but the other Gentile. Not the first Gentile, but the second Gentile. That's an inside joke. Go ahead.
Who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places.
See? So read that again. Read that last part again.
Who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of holy places.
So basically what they were doing is they was bringing these women in, temple prostitutes, and having sex with them to venerate the gods of the Greeks. And that's what Jake was doing back then. That's what the Most High said. Read that again in Deuteronomy 23.
Good. Deuteronomy 23:17. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel.
All right, bring it out, Captain.
Right, this is Blue Letter Bible H6948. Quadashah.
Now, did you look up whore?
Yes, whore. Yep.
And then when you look up sodomite, it's the same word. Go ahead.
Quadashah, it says female temple prostitute harlot. You scroll down, it says a sodomite consecrated to Astarte or Venus, and prostituting himself in her honor.
See?
Consecrated.
So what? When the Lord said, "Thou shalt not have a whore or a sodomite," it means those temple prostitutes that they had of these different nations. Now, those different nations, they had bisexual orgies.
Right.
You know.